In the beginning.
In the beginning.
In the beginning.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But how much do we understand that verse really? What if our whole understanding of God and the nature of reality is just a matter of unconscious bias? I remember my first time getting on the school bus. It wasn't my first day of school, but I had enough days under my belt to feel like, you know what, maybe this ain't so scary. Went to have a seat on the bus, and this kid next to me said, "My dad said I'm not allowed to sit next to black people." And no, that's not the word he used. We're like 4 or 5 years old, and this kid's already racist. There's no way he's actually lived enough life to have come to this conclusion by himself. But this 5-year-old kid, he was already dropping slurs. He already had a belief. At the core of his knowledge, at just 5 years old, he had 1 + 1 is 2, CAT spells cat, and I'm not allowed to sit next to Negroes. Our whole sense of God and reality is fed to us from our parents, and some of us never learned to question our parents. And if we did, we'd find there's huge gaps in their knowledge. Most people in my society are assumed Christian. It's the leading theological doctrine everywhere I turn, but they don't understand the true origins of the truth of their own religion. Let's look at the very first verse of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Let's look at this very first verse.
Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Interestingly, the word Elohim is in the plural form. The 2 highlighted letters are basically a suffix for the masculine plural in Hebrew, pretty much like the letter S added to nouns to create the plural form in English. Note that the word Elohim is also used to refer to many gods. For example, in the 10 Commandments, it says, "You shall have no other gods before me." It's basically the very same word.
So if Elohim describes a plurality, how many other times is the word God lost in translation? Like in the example mentioned above in Exodus 23, and even still in Genesis 1:26, and God said, "Let us create man in our image and after our likeness." Seems like there's more than one going on there. So what exactly is Elohim?
So Dr. Heiser, who are these Elohim? It's still not very clear to me.
Well, let's think about it this way. If Elohim doesn't refer to a specific set of unique attributes, it must mean something else. And the way I would describe this is a biblical writer would use the term Elohim of some entity, something, that by nature they were disembodied and members of the spiritual world. So Elohim is really sort of akin or synonymous with another Hebrew term, rukot, spiritual beings. Okay? Any member of the spiritual world is an Elohim.
So if Elohim describes a plurality, how many other times is the word God lost in translation? Like in the example mentioned above in Exodus 23, and even still in Genesis 1:26, God said, "Let us create man in our image and after our likeness." Seems like there's more than one going on there. So what exactly is Elohim? And no, I'm not going ancient alien with this. What Christianity calls God and the angels are the same idea as the pantheon. In fact, when you dive deeper, the name of God, Yahweh, is just the principal deity in Canaanite paganism. Meaning that even the idea of the Christian monotheistic God is just a matter of cultural mistranslation. Like in the verse, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," it acknowledges other gods. Jews were just devoted to the one God. But even the Bible describes the Elohim, plural, created the universe, created humans. Before this mistranslation, almost every religion on earth saw multiple gods. But even in those stories, it was understood that every being emanated from the one singular consciousness, the source, the great spirit. We all believe the same thing, just through a different lens. What if we created a new lens? What if we understood that every person's interactions with God, the universe, spirit, whatever you call it, what if we understood that every single human being's experience of the divine was sacred and holy? How much would we learn if we looked at these different holy books and scriptures as a puzzle piece to be fit together, not something to be argued over? If there's only one God, how could your God be different than mine? Personally, lately, I've been calling the divine God, the universe, whatever you call it, I've been calling it the majesty, the magic mystery, because we will never truly know the truth of what God is, where it came from, it, he, she, they, whatever you want to call it, them. Each of us have been taught a set of stories or values, and maybe they're a good place to start. It's not something to just throw out, but maybe it's a thing to realize that the truth of God and the divine is probably much deeper than you could possibly imagine. It's not something that we understand now, and it's not something we've understood in the past. And any attempt to say that your idea, your belief is greater or more valuable than another person's, or is more or less true, is just a matter of ego. We're not arguing about God. We're arguing about our ideas of God, our conceptions, our belief systems. But God is just one God. My first teachers, they called God the only all that is. And I really loved that, because you can't be separated from God. Nothing else in the universe even exists. You cannot be a separate entity. Every God, the angels, even the idea of a pantheon emanates from one singular source of consciousness. The things that we see as nature spirits are the same as our own individualities. Me and you are really just the same entity. We just experience ourselves through a different lens. Every expression of the universe in all its diversity and individuality is one.
Everybody, not only human beings, but animals and plants, all sentient beings whatsoever, are God in disguise. Now let me try to explain this a little more clearly. Because I cannot help thinking of myself as identical with, continuous with, one with the whole energy that expresses itself as this universe.